Alright fellas, turns out people actually really like 2D Zelda. The last one did gangbusters, so we need a new game as soon as possible for these freaks. Gimme your ideas.
We could remake the Oracle games for the Game Boy Color.
Love it, great idea. But we need something new, we need something fresh. We need something that'll make these fans creamsicle their corduroys.
Alright, stay with me here. At its core, it's a really traditional Zelda game.
I said fresh, Bobby, and that ain't fresh.
Well, hold on. It's like a regular Zelda game, except this time, Link's a spaceship, and the dungeons are like bullet hell encounters.
That's brilliant. See, fellas, this is why Bobby makes the big bucks. We need more of this.
Hold on, sir. Not to be that guy, but someone already made that game. It's on Steam, and it's called, Minishoot Adventures.
Bobby, you know that we take IP very seriously here at Nintendo, and for that reason, you're fired!
Now that he's gone, somebody look into suing the pants off these guys. This screen's ripped straight from Zelda 1, and I'll be a chinchilla's godmother before I let these bastards make a dime off this. What the hell is a Minishoot Adventure anyways? And why is there this apostrophe? This right here don't mama my Mia one bit.
Wow, I want to thank Nintendo for providing me with that footage of what really happens over there. And while Miyamoto and company fight the good fight against consumers, let me answer a few of his questions. Minishoot Adventures is a game made by two absolute chads. It's heavily inspired by 2D Zelda games like A Link to the Past, and real fans know the reason for this apostrophe is because Minishoot is a contraction of minimalist shooter adventure. From the title, you might have already guessed the big twist that this game brings to the Zelda formula. It's a space shooter and a Zelda game, which sounds like a very strange pairing on paper. I've had a lot of ideas for a different type of Zelda game, and none of them started with, let's turn Link into a fucking lunar lander. But maybe I should have been thinking like that all along, because this pairing is a surprisingly natural fit. Like candy canes and Christmas, pina coladas and the beach, or 3-4 Locos in an afternoon cruise through a school zone, this pairing just works. A large part of the reason this pairing is so successful comes down to the fantastic feel of controlling the spaceship. Minishoot Adventures is one of those games that just feels right. From the first moment you get to control the ship, everything feels fluid and smooth. The speed and maneuverability of the ship makes it fun to move around. There's just the right amount of momentum to your movements without them ever feeling out of control. The ship is very maneuverable and nimble, but it still feels like a spaceship. The closest comparison I can think of is the old Asteroids game, only if you were given much more control and much more friction. Unlike Asteroids, you can stop pretty fast instead of hopelessly drifting through this black void that we call life. I'd compare it to other 2D space shooters, but my experience in that genre is extremely limited. I haven't really played any of them since trying to beat Ikaruga years ago, giving up after remembering when my therapist said not all self-harm methods are obvious.
Give me $200.
The tight feel of the spaceship makes flying around the world consistently fun even when there's nothing going on. Once you get max upgrades and press the boost, you'll hit 12 Gs, leaving nothing but a long Monsanto-approved chemtrail behind you, and it feels awesome. At least on a controller. The game isn't worse on mouse and keyboard by any means, but it does feel quite a bit different. On a controller, the game feels very smooth and fluid, however the movement is far less immediate than on a keyboard. It feels like on the keyboard I was able to do things that would be pretty close to impossible on a controller, and vice versa the other way around. I'd recommend using a controller over a keyboard just because it felt better overall, but they are both very playable. I would have used a controller for my whole playthrough if it wasn't for technical problems that I was having. Near the end of the game, my controller was having more connection issues than me and the girls I meet from Tinder. These technical issues drove me to the brink of insanity and made me deeply consider blowing up Radiator Springs. Speaking of blowing stuff up, going into this game, the combat was the portion I was the most skeptical about. I'm not really a big bullet hell guy, and I'm also not a fan of games that kill me a million times and raise my blood pressure in the process. I already have a few frustrating games of unending death in my rotation as it is. Why would I play this game I'm shitty at when I could play this Souls game I'm shitty at, or this Battle Royale I'm shitty at? Why can't I stop playing you? Tim, why won't you let my soul be free? Every time I quit, you find a way to drag me back in? Where were we? Oh yeah, bullet hell, or as we call it in Burgerland, a school. Looking at some of the footage, it is undeniable that this game can go a little crazy with the bullets, but I promise you, it works you into it slowly. Depending on your experience with these kinds of games, it might start a little bit too slow. There was so much foreplay before things got really hard, I briefly feared it wasn't gonna get hard at all. It being the game, not me. You can call me young Davy Goggins the way I stay hard, bro.
I'm hitting my DMT cart right now.
Granted, I did play on the middle or original difficulty. Maybe on the hardest option, the game is really hard from start to finish, but I liked the difficulty curve of the middle option. It eased in more and more enemies, with the last few hours having some seriously tough encounters. There's also some post-game content in the form of combat trials, and at the difficulty I'm at, they're a proper challenge. Outside of the difficulty options, there's options for aiming controls that could make the game even easier. I stuck with the manual controls because they know me for my one-tap aim skills. It also seems like there's a significant degree of bullet magnetism built in, so hitting my targets was never really a problem. However, there is the option to have an assisted mode which helps aiming more, but the big one is an automatic mode that takes shooting completely out of your hands. In this mode, the ship locks onto targets nearby and shoots them for you, leaving you to only worry about dodging bullets and nothing else. All these options create a game that is very accessible even if it isn't a type of game that you're used to. So I don't want to hear no bitching that it looks cool but you're scared it's gonna be too hard. There's also a diverse series of combat encounters to keep you busy. There's normal enemies hanging out in the overworld or dungeons waiting for you to help them find out if Epstein really made it to heaven. There's huge bosses which all stand out as big highlights in the game, even if quite a few of them share the formula of going into the middle of the arena and spamming bullets faster than a drama YouTuber spams out slop. Finally, there's rooms that lock you inside as you're ambushed by spawning enemies, kinda like a new age version of the old Doom monster closet. This is probably the most common encounter type, especially in the dungeons. While I never got tired of them, I can see some people finding them a little bit repetitive. I think what would keep them fresher is just better room design for these encounters. A lot of these closets are just empty rooms, which makes the encounters feel very similar. The enemy type and how they spawn in makes them unique, but it would have been cool to have more encounters with bits of cover or something else to spice them up. Overall, the combat was one of my favorite parts of the game, which is good because there is a lot of it. It felt good to slowly improve at the game while my ship got stronger as well. No different than the movement, the combat difference from start to finish is really incredible. Going from a little piss shooter to orbs of unholy destruction and power-ups to boot, which leads me into how progression works. It's mostly like Zelda, but there's some twists, I promise.
Well, excuse me, princess.
Let's talk about the stuff that isn't like Zelda before we talk about the stuff that is. Unlike traditional Zelda games, Minishoot has a leveling system that is kind of unique, and I swear if one of you rat bastards brings up Zelda 2 or how the new Zelda games actually have a secret leveling system in the background, I will make your parents get a divorce. Don't test it. Anyways, when you kill enemies or blow up these red rocks, you fill this crystal at the top of the screen. Once this crystal gets filled up all the way, you're given a point to use in this little skills panel. Initially, the skills are worth a point or two, but as you get more points into one skill, the cost of improving the skill goes up, with some of the top levels taking a crazy high amount of crystals. I would say this leveling system is the primary form of character progression in the game. This is where you'll find upgrades to increase damage, bullet velocity, critical hit chance, speed, and so on. It's a really nice system that gives out skill points pretty frequently, so if you decide to grind for something, it won't take that long to get it. Another part of this system that I really like is the ability to respec at any time. If you run into a boss and want to put all your points into offensive skills, you can do it for free from the menu and switch back to whatever you want afterwards. While this might be the primary form of progression, it's far from the only form of progression. Like any good Zelda game, you're rewarded for exploring the overworld and the dungeons. There's the normal Zelda stuff like finding pieces of heart to increase your health, or these batteries which essentially act as an upgrade to your mana. The batteries increase the amount of time you can boost or use a stronger beam type. There's also maps that you can find which fill in parts of the map very similar to the towers from my favorite Zelda, Far Cry 3. That's really only scratching the surface of these collectibles though. There's a bunch of items that do all sorts of things, like giving you a % chance to take no damage when hit, or not use a power-up charge when using a power-up. There's also races with these little robots hidden around the world with its own reward for doing them. As if it wasn't Zelda enough, you can collect motherfucking bugs for a reward. There's also these other big red crystals, which help you upgrade your ghetto blaster at the main home base. There's a whole lot of stuff to find and unlock. I actually ended up fully completing the game because this shop guy sells an item that makes tracking stuff down for 100% really easy, and if he's not here to get those 100%, then who will? I warned him to never go beard mode with the IRS, but that crazy bastard never listens. All that collection stuff is a supplement to the normal Zelda thing of getting a new ability or item in each dungeon. Unlike Zelda, they're pretty much all combat related, but considering this game is much more combat focused, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It does sort of eliminate the Zelda thing of getting a new item in a dungeon and then having that dungeon be centered around that item for puzzles though, which is kind of a bummer. Puzzles is one of the ways that this game really splits off from Zelda in general. It's not like there's no puzzles at all, but there's not quite enough of them for my taste. Most opportunities for some kind of traditional puzzle have been replaced with combat trials in monster closets. Some of these trials are like puzzles in and of themselves, but if you're looking for traditional Zelda puzzles, there's not many here. So should you get this game? Yeah, it's 15 smackers on Steam, and I've seen you spend money on way dumber shit. I played it for well over 11 hours, and at no point did that feel like it was dragging. I think you could get a lot of replays out of this too. Going back on a harder difficulty or different control mode could be fun. I also think this game has massive speedrun potential if you're unemployed and looking for something to keep the voices away. It filled a 2D Zelda-shaped hole in my heart, which has left my doctors terrified and perplexed. I enjoyed getting 100%, but my final official rating would be finish it.
Finish it!
Just like I did all over your mom's chest last night. Whoa, dude, don't get mad at me. I told you not to write that comment about Zelda 2. Why would I joke about making your parents get a divorce? This is on you. Now she's lonely and I'm helping like a gentleman should. Don't get pissed off. So why don't you head up to bed and throw on some of my videos at full volume, because we are not gonna be quiet tonight. I promise you, dude. Oh, we are not gonna be quiet, bro. Come on.
That's right. We're Japanese.